I have a lecture over at the Mansfield Center at noon, so I'm going to move through this just as quickly and efficiently as I can. But first thing, what the heck, I might as well just bust this out. If you're looking for a way to purchase clean power, here it is. Arcadia Power is just publishing a way to purchase what sounds like community wind.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is based on an existing wind farm somewhere, but the way the grid works, Northwestern Energy is just selling secondary power. Arcadia might also be doing that as well. But if they own a wind farm somewhere, then they're selling primary power. And you remember that from NRGY 101 and 102. Northwestern Energy is compelled to sell a certain fraction of their energy from renewables, and that's why they bought the dams so that they can control how much that costs, right? So that if the dams are running their operation inefficiently, they can sort of jack up the price on Northwestern Energy, and then they become less competitive to their constituents. So it's a real market out there. So anyway, I also want to just show you really quickly, because a lot of people want to know what I saw in Japan, and I will show you one really cool thing I saw since we are in PV. So Tohoku University, and I'm going to say Nano Bio Solar Lab. And I really, Samukawa. So I really have to take my hat off to Abraham Kim. I don't know if you know, Dr. Abraham Kim is the director of the Mansfield Center here in Missoula. The Mansfield Center has a very special connection with Japan. So Senator John Mansfield was fixing a lot of the political stuff that was a result of World War II. There's now the Tokyo International House, which is where we stayed when we first got to Japan. We then took a bullet train up to Sendai, and it's in Sendai where Tohoku University is. Tohoku is the premier technical university in Japan. Some people call it the MIT of Japan, but some people might say MIT is the Tohoku of the United States. It's the more politically correct way to say it. But I got a personal lecture from Professor Samukawa, and if you remember from, okay, and I probably don't have to dig that deep even to show you what he's got going on. If you remember from NRGY 102, I think it was chapter 2 or 3, we started to get into the various solar technologies, right? And so a lot of people are like, oh, don't do solar, it's not efficient, blah, 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 whatever. Most current technologies have the efficiency of maybe 14%, maybe 20%. Why is that? Well, there's a lot of different reasons, but one is that we don't capture the full spectrum. So let's just look at the solar EM spectrum. Right, so here it is. We only see this little part of it with our eyes. PV cells are sensitive to some other, even smaller band gap in the total emission spectrum. What Samukawa is doing is using what's typically called a third generation PV cells. He's actually got 3 separate semiconductor layers inside the cell. The top layer is transparent to the higher energy levels. So again, higher energy levels are down here. So these photons have less energy, according to the Stefan Boltzmann equation, or anyway, we've covered that before, I won't cover it again. So the top layers are invisible or transparent. It's not until you get down into these bottom layers that you're actually able to pick up on some of the wavelengths that they're seeing. So quantum dot solar cells is what they're working on. Let me see if I can't, And guys, so seriously, dig around on this. I know it's not part of the course. We will get into what, the details of week 6 and week 7. Let me just show you this guy. Quantum dot solar cells. Strongly encourage you to read this. What they're doing on the top layer. I know I'm bouncing around here a lot, but I'm trying to cover a lot. Ferritin. What they're doing on the very top layer, they're using ferritin, which is a protein, not unlike hemoglobin, that binds iron. So the actual biomolecular stuff that allows oxygen to get from your lungs down into all the tissues in your cells is hemoglobin. It's just like we're carrying fancy rust around in our body because, as you know, if you've ever walked outside and seen a rusty building, you know that oxygen likes to attract iron. That's what makes it orange. Well, we're doing fancy rust in our bodies all day long with the iron in our blood taking the oxygen to our cells. They've taken ferritin, which, if I'm not mistaken, is actually a membrane that sits in the membranes of individual cells and allows the oxygen to be pulled from the hemoglobin down into the cells. And I believe that ferritin is or it could be transferritin, that's the protein that allows that to happen. So Samakawa is taking ferritin, and it's not shown here, but he uses the ferritin to bind nanoparticles of iron. So the ferritin encapsulates this iron. They form a monolayer on top of the cell that they're fabricating. So just imagine little ferritin-bound iron nanoparticles here, 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 with the iron right on top of the pillar and the ferritin around the outside. Well, then you put in an organic solvent, you dissolve away the protein, and you're just left with little iron balls on top. He then bombards the whole thing with a neutron beam. The neutrons bounce off of the iron, but they penetrate down into these cells. So he's looking, sometimes he uses silicon, sometimes he's using germanium. And if you remember your periodic table, dynamic periodic table, you might recall that germanium sits just below silicon. So it's also a semiconductor, more expensive, more rare, but it's picking up those higher energy photons and doing the same exact thing. The photon comes in, kicks that electron up into the activated cell, and that runs through your system. So that's basically what they're hitting 50% efficiency in the lab. And so just after I got to see Samakawa's research, and like really what a treat. Normally he would be invited to come give a talk, and someone would pay his airfare, and he'd talk to 1,000 people and say, here we are at the cutting edge. Well, it was me, his doctoral student, and Dr. Bill Whitsitt, who was also there as well, sort of on the non-renewable energy side, getting this private lecture from Samakawa. Anyway, 50% efficiency, 47.5% efficiency. Later, I sat on an energy panel with Dr. Abraham Kim, former Governor Jim Geringer, who former governor of Wyoming, and they're kind of like sort of pro coal and pro natural gas and fracking and all that. So we had a little panel, where are we now with energy tech? Where are we going? And someone said, well, what is Samakawa's solar cells cost? Because right now, we're able to purchase conventional solar for 61 cents a watt, 70 cents a watt. And, I hadn't really thought about it, but you could just do a little back of the envelope calculation. We got to see into the lab. They had several labs about the size of the room we're sitting in now. And I would just guess probably $50 to $100 million worth of equipment. So this is all, built in the clean rooms. and they've been working on it, if you look through Samakawa's research, for 10 or 15 years, and you can probably look at the salaries of the faculty and students working on this, and they probably made 1 square meter of it total, because they're making this in just little test coupons. So I'm thinking, well, maybe $10 million for a square meter. So but then you ask the question, well, how much did it cost to make the first transistor? You've probably seen pictures of the first transistor. It's all big and gnarly and wires sticking out of it. And Bell Labs, they were paying their researchers thousands of dollars of salary, and they had millions of dollars of equipment. So that first transistor was pretty valuable. But anyway, I got to see the bleeding edge, really, of the next generation of solar PV. Lots of solar PV in Japan. And oh my gosh, those guys take their roofs seriously. So we've got okay, what do you want? Rubber? Do you want asphalt, or do you want some wood? No, it's all inch-thick, triple-layered ceramics. And they put the PV right on it. So these are roofs built to last hundreds of years. And the PV goes up there, and you're done. So anyway, it was really pretty cool. Okay, so that's the PV report from Japan, and let's just look at the Moodle shell here. And so we're back to fundamentals of PV design installation, and I apologize for not putting week 6 up there. I didn't hear any emails, but anyway, week 6 is there now. The battery exam is ready for you, and it's based on chapter 6 from the book. So let's just take a quick look through chapter 6. Hit the highlights here. So chapter 6 is batteries. I'm just looking at discharge rates. There are negative terminal, positive terminal are all defined. We can see what the loads are. If you guys want, I would suggest, if you've got a smartphone, go and look at this. I might even be able to, with this computer, take a shot of that QR code to get a media clip on that guy. So you might even be able to do that with your computer, or take a picture of that with your phone and pop it into your laptop. Take a look at some of those media clips. They've got charge and discharge rates. The take-home message on the charge and discharge rates are that this is all, it's all based on the electrochemistry going on inside the cell. And almost all of these equations are going to be based on some kind of exponential. I just want to cover that kind of quickly. And the analogy that I always use on this is that if you have a room, let's just say you have a room here, and you have a bunch of seats in it, and so you can think of this as people coming into their seats. You could also think of it as the number of reactions that are still available inside a battery. So, and I've just drawn, what have I drawn there? Maybe 20 seats. So you might have, I've drawn 20 dots there. So what you're looking to do is to have these 20 people come in and fill the 20 seats. Think of a theater or a lecture hall. Well, initially, it's pretty easy, right? So somebody goes and grabs this seat, someone comes and grabs this one, someone grabs this one, et cetera, et cetera. But since someone maybe grabs this one, it can fill up very quickly because there's only a few people and a lot of available seats. Once it gets down to the end, though, somebody wants to come and fill this position. Well, he's got to step over that person, et cetera. So the fill rate is initially very high. So you can think of, it's the same as a battery, the charge or discharge rate. Here's the rate, and here's time. So initially the rate's very high. And then it starts to fill, and then it's kind of harder because you have to climb over. Somebody else has to climb over to get to this seat. Someone has to climb over here. The rate goes down, and then eventually it's very difficult. I've only drawn 20 people moving into 20 seats. In a battery, I mean, you're talking about, I don't know, 10 to the 25th. Hundreds of moles, hundreds of molar quantities of little ions moving back and forth. So, in a movie theater or a lecture hall, it's kind of discrete. 1, 2, 3, 4, down to 20. That last person, oh my gosh, like I got to get to this really middle seat. It's going to take me a long time. Same physics are at work, and that's why you see these. That's why you see these curves like you do. It's not just constant. So that's what's going on, at the molecular nanoscale, if you will, inside of batteries. And it doesn't matter what type of battery you are, but again, that's why as an engineer or technologist, it's going to be up to you to decide what type of battery do I want based on its charge or discharge rate. And typically, if you want a really quick charge, you're going to need a lot more surface area. And if I'm not mistaken, that's why the Tesla does so well. I was leaving the Missoula airport. I was looking for the latest Jack Reacher novel, Lee Child, just Pulp Fiction, right? But they didn't sell it, so I got to read Elon Musk's biography, and like, oh my gosh. So and I just advised a student this morning. I said, am I going to get a job in renewable energy? Like, if you don't, something's wrong. Because Elon Musk is tearing it up with the Tesla and Solar City. He just built like one of the world's largest solar cell manufacturing plants in the world in Buffalo. And let me show you. You should definitely read this thing. If you ever get depressed about the future of renewable energy, go read Elon Musk's biography. It will fire you up in a heartbeat. Yeah, here we go. Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the quest for a fantastic future. Here's the cover. Anyway, yeah, I see a giant revolution happening in solar. So what they did while they were building the Teslas and really struggling, I mean, like just from scratch, brand new car. When was the last time a car company actually started in the United States of America? 1920? While they're building this car company, they're also sort of secretly building these charging stations across the country. And the idea was that anybody that owned the Tesla could go there and charge their car for free. So you buy the car, but there's no fuel cost. It's all covered up front. They're doing the same exact thing with Solar City, where the customer does not pay the 10 grand, 15 grand, whatever it is up front for the PV. Solar City has enough capital. They pay for the materials and they pay for the installers, and then the homeowner simply pays whatever the utility rate would be. And they've got it dialed in such a way that with the sanctions on coal and the instability of the natural gas prices, it's much more of a sure bet because, unless a volcano goes off or something, the sun's still going to shine on your roof. So, yeah, go read that book too. Okay.
Well, that's down in Arizona that they're in there.
Yep.
And I was talking to a guy that lives from Flagstaff, and he said his bill is zero.
Yeah.
Because he can sell energy back.
Yep.
And the money he gets from that pays
Yep.
for.
Yeah, that's net metering. Yeah, the best you can do in Montana right now is about $5 a month. So if you put about 3K of PV on your roof, Northwestern Energy will not buy excess from you, but they won't charge you if you make more than you use. So
You get credit throughout the
Yeah.
winter.
you do get, yeah, you do. As and that's just called net metering, just like, net zero. And where I was going with the whole Must thing, and if you want, I would love to introduce you to my friend Glenn Kreisel. He bought, I think he was the first Tesla owner here in town. And what they did was, instead of using a few big bulky batteries, they've got 8,000 laptop batteries that run this car. And so with that, each battery has its own temperature sensor, so if it's getting hot, they shut it down. And so they're constantly monitoring, and it's a software problem. I mean, the Tesla car and that's what these guys were. They were software engineers. He started eBay, and that's where he made his money to get Tesla off the ground. So the point was, with these charge and discharge rates, you don't have to have some giant bulky battery. You can have a whole lot of little batteries that are like, popping out juice really quick into the car. And if, one or two batteries go down, fine, whatever. We'll come back and we'll fix them later. But that's their big breakthrough. Okay, so there's that. I'm going to take a break. We'll get into chapter 7.